Graham, and today I am pleased to have to introduce to you once again someone who is not a stranger to this show, which is fantastic, and has agreed to be my guest co-host, ladies and gentlemen, making another entrance to Kicking and Strip, Dr. Tracy.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. It's been a while, but I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. This has been I mean, of course, we always plan to bring you back, but you are a busy person, aren't you?
I am a busy person, but I am always excited to be on the show and to talk about some fun entertainment. And we wish Jocelyn well while she is away from us today, but hopefully I can fill in the seat well.
Absolutely. But let me just go ahead and say this to our listeners. Jocelyn does not have COVID, so
Don't worry.
that's not why she is away. Um, it has to do with other kind of ailment, and it's nothing that we should be scared of. It's
Mhm.
just but I'm pretty sure that by next week she will be with us. But this week we are all ready to enjoy your presence with us in
Well,
Cooking and Streaming.
hooray. I am excited to be here.
So this week we are talking about Hannah, and
Yes.
uh, interestingly enough, this is something that we decided to pass on last season
Hmm.
because even though we liked it, I mean, we talked about it here and there, but we didn't do an episode about it because I thought, yeah, well, how much else, what else can they how can they take this story further?
Hmm.
Little did I know that the second season was going to be as explosive and as
Right?
great as the first season was.
Yeah. I thought that the first season was it was a little slower moving, and the second season was a little more fast paced.
Definitely. And I think the crazy thing is that we learned more about Hannah in the
Hmm.
second season than we did in the introduction season. So that is it possible that somebody else took over this show? Because as you
That's a
said,
good
the second
question.
season was really, really fantastic.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know if they somehow in the middle got new writers or, because I never watched Hannah the movie. Did you see the movie Hannah before they came out the show with the show?
Actually, I learned through Jocelyn last year when we talked about it a little bit that there was a movie, and I was like, "How did I never hear of this?" And then when I watched the first season, Amazon came and said, "Because you watch Hannah, you should watch this
Watch the movie.
movie." Yeah, I'm like, "Oh,
Right.
okay."
Yeah, I have not watched the movie, so I don't even know how far they took it in the movie. I guess having a television show allows them to really explore a little bit deeper, right? So that's why we got to see more of Hannah's story moving into that second season. I thought it was really interesting because you got to see her amongst people who were supposed to be like her, right? So there was like a whole bunch of like young women who were like doing the same thing, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes, it was because last season was sort of like her introduction to
Hmm.
a world out there that she did not know of. Which I think she did pretty well, except whenever it was time for her to kick ass, she did too.
Right. Right.
But she didn't look like crocodile Dundee in New York or whatever. It was amazing to see, right? That for a girl who lived in the forest in Romania to find herself in London, traveling around Europe with her family, she did pretty well. But it was
Yeah.
it was a very exciting thing to see.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like thinking to myself, okay, here she is, this girl, like you said, grew up in a forest, right? And obviously her adoptive father took very good care of her, gave her some really great insight into the world, but she really got around considering she'd never been outside of, that little probably that I don't know how many acres that would have been, but she really was able to get all over Europe by
It
herself.
it is one of those things that if you are very critical, you could call sort of like a flaw in the story.
Mhm.
But then who wants to deal with, with the rest of it, the whole idea of like, oh, she gets startled by everything, and she wants to.
Right.
Yeah. So I find that ability to adapt was a good character trait, if you will, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think that she in the forest by herself, or I should say, how do you think she was able to get such high level training with just her father? Because when she would go toe to toe with the girls who had been in the facility, she was really able to handle her own in there. And I was surprised because they had been in this state of the art place, and they had all the techno, and they learned all these moves, and she was just her and her father in the woods.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I think. I think that she always had to consider not only having to fight for survival against people, but against the element and against all kind of all kind of
Hmm.
things in the wilderness. Whereas these young women, they were, as you said, in the state of the art kind of facility, being prepared for a particular scenario. Whereas I feel like Hannah had to think about everything that could go
True.
wrong in the
That's true.
forest. So that gave her, it sort of reminded me a little bit of Ivan Drago and Rocky, in
Yes.
it.
Yes, I agree.
Whereas Rocky had to train in the streets of Philadelphia
Mhm.
and run up and down some stairs, whereas Ivan Drago had all of this technology because he was training to face Rocky,
Right.
whereas Rocky was training to face anybody.
Everything. Yeah. Right. That's a very good point. I think, yeah, her being in the woods made her, it gave her like street smarts almost.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Whereas,
That's an adventure.
being in the facility, they were very one-tracked.
Yes, and in the whole idea of we are going to train you to sort of like blend in.
Yeah.
You have to go into society, live a normal life until you are called upon to fulfill a mission. Hannah never had that. Hannah was like, "I'm on a mission every day, man."
That's a very good, yeah, she was like, yeah, she's on a mission every day. I really liked that idea of the storyline and the angle that they took of where they were trying to make them normal. So they spent all of their lives essentially being not normal, right? Like trained to be killers. And then all of a sudden they're like, now we're going to make you college students. And then they
Right.
gave them lives.
Yes, that kind of brought up a bit of the sadness of being conceived and prepared for that kind of life, in the sense that um, perhaps before all you saw in them was literal killing machines,
Mm-hmm.
but then once they were introduced to this new life, you saw them yearning for that family life,
It's true.
for the knowledge of parents and brothers and
Mm-hmm.
sisters. And that was interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really sad because especially the one girl, which now I can't remember her name, the main girl in the facility, how she really she adopted her story as if it really was her own. Like they really started to take it seriously, which made them seem more human. Right? Like you could
Yes,
see
she
like their
fell
human
for it.
side. She really did. Like you could see like this longing. I mean, and psychologically when you're taken away from anything, like when taken away from love, taken away from care, taken away from family, right? And then now it's given back to you. You can really see like how human they truly were at the core, but yet they were having this tension of I'm a fighting machine, I'm a killing machine, I have these assignments, but I also want to have a real life and a family, and and how they could switch it like in any given
It,
moment.
it's an amazing series, and it touches a lot of especially on this season on it became a bit more emotional, more human than we
Hmm.
saw the first season. And I always ask myself this question: why exactly is it that um, Amazon series don't seem to resonate so much with people, right?
It's
Amazon
true.
has put out some really exciting stuff out there,
That's true.
and in award shows, for instance, they always win some
Hmm.
very
They
prestigious
do.
things, right? But then, shows like Hanna or Hunters, which was like an absolutely fantastic show. I mean, they
Hmm.
even got Pacino to
Yeah,
work on that,
right.
right? And yet, I don't see a lot of people going crazy, goo goo gaga over it. What do
I
you
don't
think is
either.
that phenomenon?
I think it's because Amazon, like, I think they're very careful, and we've talked about this, like, in the Facebook group, how Netflix has kind of just been hit or miss, like, with some things, like, some things are good, some things are not, right? But they churn them out, like, every week. There's, like, a new Netflix show every week. And I
Yeah.
think Amazon is just a little bit more careful with the projects that they choose, and they put more, I think they put more resource behind it, which is how they can get people like Al Pacino, Julia Roberts, who was in
Yes.
the one show. They had Halle Berry in another, right? So I think they put a lot of thought and care into the kinds of projects that they do, but they are a little bit off book. Like they're just a little bit left of, like, you have to really just be into that kind of thing to watch it,
Yes.
right?
Yes. That
um
is true.
yeah, I don't know. Like, there's not really a lot of feel good things on Amazon. The shows that they come out with, like Hunters,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
there's not a lot of
Yes.
feel good. Like, it's usually a little more cutthroat, and maybe people just want feel good, which is what
You
Netflix, I think, tries to do.
you're absolutely right because I remember trying to convince a friend of mine to start watching Men in the High Castle, which was one of my favorite
Yeah.
shows by Amazon. And when I tried to explain to her the premise of the show, she's like, I'm just looking for something a bit more mindless to watch.
Yeah, I was actually, because I was telling somebody about Hunters, and I said, Hunters is a good show, and he said, no, I really need something. He was like, that's a little too dark for me right now. I really need and so maybe that's just it, is that it's just a little bit. It's dark, and also I would say, aside from like Mrs. Maisel, a lot of the shows are like, you really have to pay attention, right? Because it's
Yes.
definitely not a background kind of show. Like, you need to watch it, see what's happening. It's so many characters. You have to see the storylines, remember things from previous episodes. So I think that's the reason why people aren't. It's a niche market, I should say.
Yes. But at the same time, it sort of like makes it special in a way
Hmm.
because I feel like I look at Netflix and I see that Netflix is getting insanely mundane,
Hmm.
almost almost as if like at any point I'm expecting Netflix to start introducing commercials in the
Yeah,
middle of
like
it. Well,
Hulu. Right. Yeah.
exactly. And in terms of Netflix can give you a very very good series to watch. Um, like for instance, about 3 weeks ago, we did an episode about The Woods, you
Mm.
know, uh, which is a fantastic show from Poland. And one of the good things that Netflix is doing is actually introducing us to a lot more international TV than we're
Yes,
accustomed.
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, they are doing
but
that.
at the same time, as we were talking during in the group, it's like, okay, this girl mimics, does some lip syncing of Donald Trump, but now she's getting a Netflix special, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this? Huh? You know. So I think for anybody who's looking for something a bit more substance,
Hmm.
it's a good thing to have Amazon, and it's possible that people forget that it is included with your Amazon Prime membership too.
Yeah, I think that's true, because usually people, when I say, "Oh, go watch this show," people automatically will say, "Oh, Netflix," and I'm like, "No, it's on Prime." Like, and I think that they do forget that there are shows on there, that they can watch, and it's not just Netflix. And to your point about, and they do get a lot of, kind of social media personalities to do some of these Netflix movies, and some of the Netflix movies have been, they've been okay. They've been very, what people want, very mainstream, very, lighthearted, fluffy.
Yeah, yeah, and whenever we talked about a Netflix blockbuster, at the end of the day, there's always like something a little meh about it. Like, eh,
Right.
they can come with all the whistles and bells, and then you say like, yeah, you wouldn't see that in a movie made for theater. Like for instance, Extraction.
Mm.
Um, Extraction was good, but I somehow I was left like, so okay, what was this again?
Yeah, I
Um,
think I agree with you. Well, I think Extraction was like that. That Six Underground was like that. Even Will Smith's Bright, I feel like, was like that. Like
yes,
not
yeah,
shows that you would expect to see, as big hit blockbusters in a theater, but do okay on Netflix, I guess. I guess that's the place
yeah.
for them.
So going back to Hannah, um, what interested you? Like, what made you want to watch Hannah, especially so for someone who had not seen the movie
Right.
like I was.
Yeah, I was really interested because, well, it kept popping up. First of all, it was like, "Oh, you watch Jake Ryan, you also want to watch him." So it kept popping up. Second of all, I really liked this premise of this young girl when I read about it, and it said, "Oh, it was a young girl raised by her father in the woods, and to be an assassin or something." And I was like, "Well, that sounds very interesting." So that really kind of caught my eye. Is that this girl was, living? I had no idea where it was taking place, so I didn't even know that it was set in Europe. I didn't know anything about it other than it it was a girl in the woods and she was trained to be an assassin.
Yeah, I sort of that was like the first thing that kind of grabbed my attention. But the other thing I kind of realized is that it which tends to happen a lot with anything that takes place in Europe is that you have this convergence of languages.
It's true. Very
You
true.
know, yeah. In one moment you hear them speaking English, in one moment they're speaking French, in one moment they're speaking Romanian, in one moment
And
they're
in
speaking
German
German.
and yeah.
And it's lovely for me. It's kind of like it sounds like what my head looks
Oh, sure.
like.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
think that that's really good. Because we forget, and that really is how it is in Europe. Like
Right.
it's been a couple years now, but the last time I was there, I don't speak French, but I do speak enough Spanish, right? And a lot of people in Europe can convert, like can
Oh yeah.
communicate in Spanish. So when I was in Paris, if they didn't speak English, then I could switch to, like, well, do you speak Spanish? And most of them would be like, yeah, a little, and then we could kind of get along by just speaking my very limited amount. So, um, but I love that. I love exactly what you said. I think that that's very representative of how Europe is in general. You can literally go from one city to the next and speak like four languages in a day.
Oh yes, oh yes. That,
Hmm.
that is that is an amazing thing, and while it might not be attractive to most people, and we've talked about a lot about how people avoid
Hmm.
um, reading subtitles or listening to dubbed up movies and series.
Hmm.
But for a guy who didn't grow up, speaking English, that's kind of like how I got used to watching movies. In,
Mm.
in, in fact,
Hmm.
even now in English, I still put the, the
Subtitles on.
subtitles.
Yeah, you know what? Like when so what to that point of subtitles, I was watching Hamilton with a friend of mine because I'm a huge Hamilton fan, and I've now watched it probably more times than anybody needs to see it because I've watched it with every friend. But I listened to the soundtrack for years, right? Like I listened to it for 5 years, and most of my friends had never heard about it until I kind of exposed them. So even watching English, they needed the
Yeah.
subtitles from watching Hamilton because it runs so fast. But I would much rather have subtitles than an overdub. I prefer a subtitle.
Well, yes, yes, and it's almost well. The things that I watch in English that are subtitles, that I use the subtitle, is mainly because at the same time I'm chewing, you know. So from munching, I can't hear what they're saying, so I prefer
Sure.
to read the subtitle. But subtitles is sort of like a natural thing to me that I keep
Hmm.
looking for the entire time, except when watching uh, a bootleg movie and the subtitle is in Chinese or Korean, then I have no idea what I'm looking
Right.
at.
No, yeah, I think that I liked how they did that. I like how they were pretty authentic to, there are multiple languages and we need to speak all the languages, and everybody just didn't have, some weird off English accent, even when they were in
Yes,
Romania.
and I actually here's a couple of things about the accent. So now that you mentioned accent, right? Mireille Enos, the actress who plays Marissa Vigler,
Hmm.
her French is absolutely fantastic. So I
Oh,
can.
wonderful.
It sounded to me that she is not a person who learned French, but rather has been speaking French her entire life.
Oh, wow.
And I'm very critical normally of people who just learn a line
Sure.
and it just sounds out of context when you hear it, because
Yeah.
that's no, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't
Mhm.
know what she's saying, but her French is fantastic.
That's great.
Uh, the actress who plays Hannah, Esme Creed Miles, her German accent
Yeah,
is
because she's English,
beautiful too.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
English, right?
Yes, and her German accent was on point, and I was like, and she's a young kid. She's like, I guess she's just with while doing the show turned between 18 or
Yeah.
19 or something.
Yeah, I think she's still in her teens.
Yeah, and it takes actors with a lot of experience to fake an accent and
And stay in character.
and stay with it. Because last year, Jocelyn and I talked about this because we criticized when we were watching Hunters. No,
Hmm.
no, no, not Hunters. This movie called with Sacha Baron Cohen called The Spy,
Oh,
and um, and there was this American actor who was playing an Israeli, and every now and then he would drop the accent,
okay.
and we noticed it.
And I feel like for these productions, I know that they have dialect coaches and things like that. I really think that they should be a little bit more aware, like when that happens, so that
Yes,
they can just redo. But
yeah,
maybe it
yeah.
was
I mean,
just such a good scene, they didn't want to redo it and risk ruining the scene itself.
yeah, but I mean, it was bad. But at the same time, though, how many people do you really think are actually paying attention to accents? Like, once they hear an accent, they
That's
hear an
true.
accent.
That's
Then,
very true.
how many times people will ask me questions like, "I detect an accent. Are you from
I detect an
Africa?"
accent.
Yeah, and I'm like,
That's true.
"What?" Like, what country in Africa would that be? Because, like,
That's so, and yeah, and you're right. I mean, most people, especially most the Western world, they are not, they're just not well averse to hearing different accents. My mom's Filipino, so I grew up with, her accent, and then I live in Miami, and everybody has an accent here. So it's very,
exactly.
I'm just very used to accents all over the place. But most people, yeah, they're not. It's also difficult for people to understand, which is interesting because sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's so difficult to. What did that person say? It's so difficult to
Yeah,
understand their accent," and I'm like, "No, it's not." But it could just
yeah,
be
that's
because
true.
I'm used to hearing different accents.
I tend to get a bit defensive about that when people
Mm,
tell me, "Well, I don't understand you because you have an accent." I'm like, "How about you not actually paying attention to what I'm
yeah,
saying
because
because
it's
my
not
accent distracts you?"
right. Yeah,
you
I
know.
think that's a very good point. I think the accent can be distracting, but it's certainly not difficult to understand. I think that a lot of people just, here we are.
Right. So now that you mentioned your mom being Filipino, how's your Tagalog?
My Tagalog's very good, actually. I lived in the Philippines for a couple years. I was born there and then lived there again when I
Right.
was like 10, 8 to 10. So, and I have a lot of, I grew up around Filipinos my whole life. So go back to the Philippines
Yo,
pretty
that's
often. So yeah,
that is
it's pretty
that
good.
is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I like like my heart rejoices when I find people that are multilingual.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
think that I agree with you. I think everyone should at least try, right? Like at least because the world, especially now, we are so
yes,
connected, right? I never feel like if I go to another country, I don't feel like I'm not going to be able to figure out how to get around because I can converse in a lot of different languages. I can communicate in a lot of different ways. And of course, I like to when I go to another country. Even when I went to France, for example, I learned a couple of little things. I mean, I'm not going to be fluent, but I like to honor people's heritage and people's nationality
yes,
when I go. I don't expect for them to know my language, so I try. We try.
yes. But hey, kudos to you, because this is one of those things that I try to get people to understand is that when you go to other people's country, um, it is their courtesy towards you to speak your language.
Right. They do
They
not
don't
have
have an
to.
obligation
Right.
to speak your language. And it's like, oh, if you want my money, if you want me to be a tourist here, you have to speak my language. No, that's not the way it works.
No, because
There's
when we
some things your money cannot buy.
exactly, and people get angry when people come to America and don't speak English, you know? And so you can't have it both ways. You have to,
Absolutely.
honor people's just at the very least learn how to say please and thank you. I mean, again, we're not asking for fluency. You're not going to go to their, the United Nations and the embassy and start to, try to create policy in another language, but we just need for you to be able to please, thank you.
Absolutely.
Common things.
Yep.
Hello.
Hello.
Right. Simple things.
So let's talk a little bit about the cast here
Okay.
because there were quite a bit of returning or recurring characters,
Hmm.
but also we saw a bit of newly introduced characters that sort of like made the show great.
Hmm.
So we did talk about we've already mentioned the name of Hannah. So the actress playing Hannah, her name is Esme Creed Miles.
Hmm.
You know, she has like a hyphenated name like yours truly here.
Right.
Uh, so she is effectively 20 years old. She's from England,
Hmm.
and I believe that Hannah is her first big character.
Oh, good
She's
for
been
her.
acting. She's been acting since she was like a young kid because both of her parents are in the industry.
Well, good for her.
But looks like yeah, she right. So her mother is Samantha Morton and her father is Charlie Creed Miles. So yeah, these people are sort of. I mean, she comes from acting royalty,
Mm.
and but is. I say this a lot, but she was born to play Hannah, wasn't she?
Yeah, she did such a really good job. I think she really did fit that character so well. I think if this is, I feel like I did read somewhere that this was her first role, or first like serious movie role. I thought that she came on screen and really commanded it. And to be Hannah, you had to do that, right? Like you couldn't be
Yeah,
like a little mousy nobody hiding in a
yeah.
corner, pretending to be, this assassin girl. I think she did terrific.
And that's exactly what we're always looking for, right?
Hmm.
That even though we know that it is, a 20-year-old or some girl in her teen playing to be an assassin, we don't want to see an actor pretending to be, but rather somebody who fully gets into it. And as you
Hmm.
said, she's in there.
Yeah, I
She
thought she did
gets
great.
into it. Uh, um, so Mireille Enos, and I don't know if she goes by Enos or Enos, but
I
I'm
know.
reading it uh, as a non-English last name.
Right.
Uh, so Mireille Enos is Marissa Wiegler. I also like the fact that they pronounce Wiegler with its German pronunciation as opposed to Wiegler.
That's true. Yeah, because I guess because they're in Europe and they're going to pronounce it the right way.
Exactly. One of the things I've always complained about, for instance, is how um, a lot of people immigrate to the United States and they allow their names to be anglicized.
Yeah.
And like there is no such thing, there is no last name anywhere of name Winner. There, like Anthony
Right.
Winner. Like, that's not how you
That's not
pronounce
a
that,
real name. Yeah. Hmm.
and so you're lending yourself to be obviously ridiculed.
Right. Right.
Meanwhile, you could tell everybody, correct everybody, my last name
That's
is
right.
Viner.
That's is Viner. That's not actually the name. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So the fact that they maintained the proper pronunciation of Wiegler, I loved it. But let's talk about the actress. She A lot of people are not familiar with her, but it's not because you haven't seen her. Rather, you don't remember her. Because I personally the first time I noticed this actress
Hmm.
was, do you remember the show Big Love?
Yeah.
That's where I saw her the first time. She was playing like one of these, behind the scene characters,
Mm.
one of the sister wives of one of those big, big characters.
Yes, I vaguely I vaguely remember that now because she does
Yeah,
have such a familiar like when you see her, it was exactly as you said. Like I knew that I'd seen her before. I just could not pinpoint where it was.
yeah, yeah. She was on Big Love, and so the last name Enos is because she is, well, the first name is actually French too, Mireille, right? But her mother is actually French, and the dad is a Texas born man who met her mother while serving on a mission for the LDS in France.
Oh,
So
look
she
at that.
she had actually a Mormon upbringing, which I suppose gave her the upper hand in playing the character that she played on Big Love.
There you go. Yeah. So I wonder what she must have been, if not fluent, proficient in French already.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we were talking about because I
Yeah.
remember one of the things is like whenever she met with the dude that made the passports and stuff,
Yes.
that's when she had the most opportunity to speak
To
fluently in French. And I kept hearing so many um so many beautiful things that she said that are not, from a learned
Like if you're learning, yeah,
person.
yeah, it's somebody that's just been
Right.
conversing regularly.
Yes, and whenever she greeted the guy, she never said, like formally you would say bonjour every time you see someone, but
Yeah.
she used the term salut, which is more
Mm,
of a relaxed way of greeting,
yes. That's
right?
great.
You
That's wonderful that you
know?
picked up on that.
And I'm like, that's
Yeah, so
out
she
there.
must have been just well versed in, yeah, in speaking French already. That's great. And what a great skill to have because as an actor,
Yes.
you know, having multiple languages, it really does open up doors, right? Because that could have
Oh yeah.
been, while I think that she did a great job in that role, I think that the role, there are a lot of women that could have probably played that role, but her speaking French as fluently as she does, or as proficiently as she does, probably just kind of put her on the edge.
Yeah, I there are a couple of aspects of the character of Marisa Vigler that I like.
Hmm.
And the number one thing is that at one point something clicked and told her, you have to do the right thing by this little girl.
Yeah, yeah.
So and she did, but like she had a way of conning herself into the conversation just so she could, keep an eye on Hannah.
Mhm.
And she was so clever about it. She went about it so brilliantly that she was able to fool everybody.
Yeah.
And this character is lovely, and I hope we keep seeing her during,
Well,
in
I
the next
think,
seasons to
yeah,
come.
I think the next season, I feel like, I mean, we kind of have to because season two left off with her and Hannah kind of locking arms and saying, okay, we're gonna, fix this.
Yep,
So I think it's gonna,
we're doing this.
yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of her character, and I'm excited. I think that they have a really good chemistry.
They do. They definitely do. You are absolutely right. Another actor that this time we just saw almost always in flashback was Joel Kinnaman, who played Eric, Hannah's father. Um, I'm a big fan of Joel Kinnaman, and not necessarily because he played Eric on Hannah, but if you saw Altered Carbon, you'll remember Joel Kinnaman.
Yes, yep, I remember. Yes, yep,
It's because of Altered Carbon, I'm like, oh, this guy is a fantastic
it's
actor.
gonna be great. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
And it was great to see him, although albeit in flashbacks, but he was always there, and that was fantastic.
it was.
What do you think of Yasmin Monet Prince as Clara Mahan?
You know, I, if, I mean, it's difficult to say what I thought about her because I don't know what I don't know what the brief called for, right?
Uh-huh.
So I
Uh-huh.
don't know what exactly they were looking for. I mean, if it's one of those things where it's like if that was the kind of character they wanted, then she did great. But I don't know what the brief
Yeah.
called for. I feel like she was a little just masculine, and that could have
Yeah.
been what the casting called for. I
Right.
don't think that they wanted somebody uber feminine and like flirty skirts, but
Mm.
I think that I don't know that she would have been able to carry everything by herself. I think that she did a good job, kind of with the other actors.
Yes, yes. The one thing about the character that I was a little bit like taken aback from is the fact that emotionally the character was everywhere. Like she was all over the place, isn't it?
She was.
But will you make up your mind already?
Yeah, I think, and maybe again, that's what that was, how the character was written.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see. Well, we will not see because she's actually not coming. I don't, who knows, right? We don't know if she's coming back, but
Yeah. Do you think she won't come back though? Like, I mean, the whole encounter with mommy and stuff. Do you think that that's it for her?
I don't know, maybe. I think that the series can go on without her just fine, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I like. I love what the character did. I think that it kind of gave Hannah a reason, right? Her dad
Yeah.
has passed. These are spoiler alerts for those who haven't watched
Yeah.
it. But like her dad passed away, and it gave Hannah a reason to kind of love again, to like have a
Yes.
human connection, right? So it gave her a
Yes. You're
reason.
absolutely right.
And so I think it served its purpose, and then she is now gone, and now her new human connection is back to having Marissa. So I don't know that Clara needs to come back, but I think that she could come back. I think that they did that on purpose to leave it open in case Hannah needed to pick up the phone to call a friend. I think she would be available.
Yeah, and she could well be the Robin to
Right.
Hannah's Batman.
Exactly.
But yeah, you're absolutely right though, and I never thought about it this way. But yeah, it seems like the series could easily go on
Right. I don't think.
without her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that it's one of those characters that I don't think will be missed. You know.
Right. On the other hand, though, Anya Rose Daly,
Yes.
who played Sandy Phillip, I think we definitely need to see more of her.
Yes, I thought she
She was
was.
an interesting character.
Yeah, I thought she played it really well. I thought when it called for her to be, kind of like, oh, I'm a daughter and I have a mom.
Yes.
She played that really well. And then when there was that one scene in the hotel where she had to like switch really quick to become a satin
Dude.
her, and I was like, wow, like you just see like these young girls come in for like trying to, and I thought she did a great job. I do think that we need to see her again because she's such the polar opposite of
Yes.
Hannah that we need to see it.
Yes, yes. For like exactly the scene in the hotel, though, that's where I'm like, yo, she is gangster.
Yeah, right. There was a switch and she flipped it, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, yeah,
So
she's
I think
fantastic.
she's great, and I that's kind of why I feel like the Clara character isn't needed because she's not an antithesis of anything. She's just kind of like a supportive role to Hannah and just kind of follows Hannah, around or
Yep.
whatever. But then you have how do you pronounce her name? Aine.
Anya.
Yeah. Where is she from?
Anya.
Where is she?
She's Irish. She's Irish.
She's Irish. I wonder if we've been
Yeah.
pronouncing her name right then. Because
Yeah, the name
Irish
is
names.
name is yeah. So it is all like AWER, and then the rest of it is nya.
Okay, so
Anya.
Anya. Okay, well, Anya, her character, Sandy, is yeah, she's just the opposite of what Hannah is. So we need to see that polarization.
Yeah, and she's been busy. She was in Hannah. She was in Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan,
Hmm.
and
She was.
also Boiling Point, which is another movie coming out in 2021.
That's awesome.
So She's making that money.
Is she coming? Is Boiling Point going to be another Amazon film? I do feel like both Amazon and Netflix do this, is they reuse the same actors for different,
Yeah. Yes.
almost, it's very reminiscent of how, old Hollywood was back in the day when they would just have contracts with certain, like Fox would have these contracts with like MGM would have contracts with these actors, and they,
Yeah.
kind of reuse them for different things. So I guess we'll see.
And it's a good thing to see, which in terms of job security in a
Right?
market that is so volatile. But at the same time, sometimes it's hard to to switch and see those actors as the other characters that they play.
That's true.
Sometimes it's easy, but most of the time, for me, depending on how profoundly impacted I was by a character, it's hard for me to take the same actor seriously in another role. Does that happen to you?
It does when the characters are drastically different. Like, for example, if Anya decided that she was going to go into like a romantic comedy role, that would be a little hard for me to watch because I'm like, I just saw you kill a man in the hotel. Like, I'm not, now you're like in a mini skirt flouncing around in Central Park. That would be a little bit different for me to see. But Boiling Point sounds like it's another action type film. So I know I'm not an actress. I did some theater, back in the day, but um,
Right,
even in theater, you generally play the same kind of roles, right? You fit into a particular kind of genre.
right,
Um,
right,
but I feel like movie actors or television show actors, they're a little bit more, or they desire to be a little bit more fluid. I don't think that they want to be typecast. Like a lot of them
right.
struggle with that. They're like, I don't want to always do action. I want to grow. I want to, in the theater world, we're like, I'm a soprano. I'm gonna do every soprano role that I can do. No
Yep,
one's
yep,
trying to branch out too much. If you're a comedic actress in theater, then you do the comedic shows. You're probably not going to be the one in Les Mis,
right.
singing your little bleeding heart out. You know what I mean? Right. But TV and movie actors and actresses are a little bit different. I think they like to expand. So we'll see what Anya does in the future.
It's one of those things that I always admired from British actors is that one of the things they do is that even no matter how successful a show is, they will give it maybe between 2 and 3 seasons and then move on,
Yes.
so that we don't get so used to seeing them just being one character, and so they don't get typecast, right?
Well, they did
They
that.
walk away from
Yeah,
things.
they do. They walk away. They will walk because they did that with. I remember I learned about that process when I was watching Downton Abbey, and they would kill characters off just left and right on Downton, and I was like, why do they keep killing characters? And I didn't realize it was because the actors were like, I'm good, I'm ready to go. I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
I'm kind of
wow.
done with this. Yeah.
And yet you have
Whereas
Anatomy going into like season 97, and they're
my
playing,
goodness.
and they're still, and they're fine. Like they're like, this is job security for me. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I have the same complaint with the cop shows, right? Like
Mm.
Mariska Hargitay, like she's been like 20 something seasons in the same
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
And but like I would have loved to see her, I don't know, playing some badass character in a movie or something. Uh but at least in if I saw her in that other character, I would not simply see Olivia, whatever her name is, on the show that she plays. But it's
Mhm.
been so many years, so many seasons. So I think it's a good method that actors everywhere should actually start following, is that when I even no matter how successful a show is, I'm not going to stay too long so
Yeah,
that people can see me in other roles. No.
yeah. I guess it just
Uh,
depends on the kind of career an actor and actress wants to have.
yeah, that
Yeah.
also that is also true. Uh, there was this actor who got introduced in this in Hannah season 2, Dermot Mulroney. What do you
Uh,
know?
oh yeah, he was in the 90s and 2000s. I feel like he was like a leading actor in some rom-coms. He did a movie with Julia
Oh,
Roberts. Um,
Oh.
I don't remember. Was it My Best Friend's Wedding? It was like, I think it was My Best Friend's Wedding. Let me take a look at it. But I remember him, McDermott. What's his first name? His name is
Dermot.
Mulroney.
Mm.
He was in a movie with Julia Roberts. This was way, way back. I'm like scrolling, like, when did you do that? Um, because it was like the 2000s.
Yeah.
But he's been around a lot because I'm still scrolling. He did The Family Stone. I remember that was with Sarah Jessica Parker. That was in the 2000s as well.
Mhm.
My Best Friend's Wedding. Yes, that was in 1997. That's when I remember him. That's the only thing I remember him from, really.
So my dude has been around for a while.
Yeah, because I'm scrolling. He has a full resume. A full
Wow.
resume.
Yeah. So what did you think of this character? It was a bit sinister, wasn't he?
Yeah, and it's to your point of seeing people in different roles, because I'm so like I have an association of him as a leading man in like a rom-com. It was difficult for me to see it at first as this, kind of evil man in this role. And it took me a couple of episodes to kind of accept that this is what he was doing. But yeah, it took me a little bit.
Yeah, and I at several points I was like hoping somebody would kill him or something, like, because there was no point of seeing. There was never a point where you would see that he would have a change in purpose, like like this guy's determined to get this thing done, and
Yep.
even when the people who are his bosses are giving up on the project, he just wants to continue. And I'm like, dude, come on.
I
take
know.
take a break, man.
Right, he must be a Taurus. Like he was just really like, we're gonna go. I'm digging my heels in on this one. That's true.
Yeah, yeah, but it was good, and I don't know if this is gonna be a returning character.
Well, she
uh
died. They killed him, remember? Or did. No, they didn't. They didn't kill him.
eh?
Did they kill him? No, they didn't. They just kind of
No.
no. He is a recurring character because at the end, Marissa says, "You're gonna help me." Like remember they said,
Right,
oh, and she says,
right.
"You're and you are going to help me," and
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
is coming back.
All right, so there's gonna go. What do you think of? Okay, so I'm gonna start by saying this. I didn't like the character they gave Sherelle Skeet on this one.
Oh, like the social worker type
Yes,
woman.
I've
Yeah. Poor
no,
girl.
I
I
didn't. I kept hoping that she would just switch side.
know. Right. I feel like she's starting to.
Yeah, but kind of late, isn't it? Like,
Like,
I think she was able to see from the very beginning that there was something
mm,
terribly wrong about what she was in charge of doing,
yeah.
innit? So I expected her to sort of like at least by mid,
Mhm.
season to go like, yo, I'm gonna switch side.
Yeah. I agree. I think she did take a little bit long. Like for I don't know what her background was, right? So they introduced her and said this is now your job, but what was her background prior to that?
It seems to me that she was one of those CIA analysts that, you
Yes.
know, wanted to get like a field job
Oh,
instead.
okay, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that yeah, because I was like, I don't know that she even had the qualifications to and maybe there's a lot of tension and I think that they didn't do a good job of show if there was tension of showing it because maybe she wants to have this field job and so she doesn't want to get fired but she's also like there's something very wrong here and it's
Yeah.
taking her a moment but maybe I don't know will she come back next season, will she, won't she?
That's a good question because I feel like there's a bit more to her than we stole.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that and I also feel like because she did a lot of like interesting counseling roles. Like she was like in this weird counseling position, right?
Yeah.
You have to counsel
Yeah.
them. So I feel like there needs to be that character, whether it's her or someone else. There needs to be that character.
I liked, how she approached Clara, for instance, when Clara had that outburst and she was in, sort of like in solitary confinement. I like the approach she had to her. Like, I'm just gonna sit here just so you don't feel like you're on your own,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And at that moment, I felt like, oh, she's coming around. You know what I mean?
At that moment, but she didn't quite
Yeah.
make it all the way around the circle.
Man, that was disappointing, man. I don't know. Like I was rooting for her to become one of the good guys, because Marissa started this show, very cruel,
Right, right. She did. She really did.
and then all of a sudden she had a change of heart that I was like, I'm liking this new Marissa, even though she got her butt kicked by Hannah on both
Did.
on
She
both
did on
seasons.
that train. Yeah, when they were on
Right?
the train or the bus or the it was a boat. They were on the boat and yep, she did.
Yo,
She kept coming back.
but oh my god.
She kept coming back, which is that a lot to be said about a character that like the heart of Marissa wanting to fix things.
Yeah, yeah. So Sherelle's kids, the character that the actress we're talking about, she is from Birmingham, England. She's from the West Midlands,
Hmm.
and she was born of Jamaican and Vincentian parents. So one parent from St. Vincent's and Grenadine, and one parent from Jamaica.
So she is Caribbean. She's of Caribbean
Caribbean.
descent.
Yay! I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Loads
for
of
her.
talks about the Caribbean. Leo Garner, played by Anthony Welsh. Uncle Leo. I
Uncle
love.
Leo.
I don't know if you got that reference, but I cracked up when
No, I
they.
didn't. What was the reference?
Do you remember Seinfeld had an Uncle Leo? Jerry
Oh,
Seinfeld.
yeah, he did. Right. Yes.
And Uncle Leo became sort of like a nemesis to Jerry
Yes. I
because,
feel like Uncle Leo wasn't tough enough. I wanted him to be like,
yeah,
if he was going to be a bad guy, like I needed him to be a bad guy.
it feels like Uncle Leo was more interested in being the pretty boy.
I was just going to say, I was like, I think he was like too pretty. Like, I need you to be bad. Like, I need you, like be more sinister, be more
Yes,
aggressive, but smooth. You can still be
yeah,
smooth and be a bad guy. I don't know.
right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, he could be the pretty boy and still be a bad
Yeah.
guy, but he was sort of as Jocelyn would have called it, sort of like a wet napkin.
Right, he just didn't quite, do what he was supposed to do. Like I feel like he needed to be tougher. He needed to be more, yeah, smooth but meaner.
But here's the thing, though. While he's an actor that I recognize, and he's been on a lot of shows that I've watched,
I don't
I
recognize
don't
him.
remember him from those other shows.
See, he's forgettable. You're forgettable,
You're
Anthony.
right.
Like
I
you,
mean, so he was on The Personal History of David Copperfield.
yeah,
He was on Black Mirror.
he was on Black Mirror.
He
Hmm.
was on Black Mirror, and he also was on Fleabag.
Yeah, I feel like he's just forgettable. Then you
I
just
don't remember this dude. I do not remember. I mean, I don't remember the characters he played. When I see him, I remember, okay, this guy, I've seen this guy on something else, but I
yeah.
just don't remember the characters he played on anything that he's been on. So,
Yeah, forgettable. Then he is
eh,
forgettable. So, and to that point, he did. It's like as an actor, and again, I'm not the foremost authority on acting with my little bit of acting that I've done, but you kind of have to go there, and I just feel like he never quite went
yeah, it's almost like, what is his role
there.
again?
Right.
Like, what does he do? Eh?
And I think that character really could have been more dynamic, but the way that it was played, I just feel like it was kind of a throwaway character, so they could kill him at the end.
Like, let's just throw this guy in here.
Yeah, it was a throwaway
um,
character.
one actress that I think probably her role wasn't supposed to be that good, but she is so good of an actress that she made something of this character. I'm talking about Gianna Kill. Uh, she played what was the name of her character?
She played Jewel.
Jules
Yes.
Jules Allen, right?
Yes.
Do you think they really
I
planned
liked
for
her.
her character to be this, uh, influential? Because I felt like she stole every scene.
I
Uh,
agree. I think, yeah, I think she was really strong in her scenes. I think that you could really see, like, she really did a good job of portraying the differences between her and how, like, her experience, kind of being this assassin going into this fake world, and Sandy's experience coming being an assassin.
yes,
And she was very, very strong with her point of view. I thought she did great.
in the other thing I liked about her is the fact that she figured it out pretty early that this
Mhm.
whole thing was fake, and she wasn't gonna fall for it.
Yeah,
And
she
I
did good.
loved it. I loved it. And the moment where she had to be decisive, and again, she ended up killing people and stuff. But like,
She did.
that's my thing, is that I don't. I'm not saying, I like what she did, but rather it was a character that did what needed to be done, and that was my
Right.
problem with the character of Clara, is that, like I said, Clara was too sentimental and everywhere,
Hmm.
and we know that that's not what she was, uh, brought out to be. So what happened there? You know what I mean? Like, is that a flaw, um, in the whole, psychological, makeup of those characters, or was her personality too strong to even be, um, uh, converted into the kind of assassin that she was supposed to be?
I think a little of both. I
You
think a little
think?
bit of both. Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think that, her and this is such a good point, because you can take this from many angles of, like, just nature versus nurture. Who a person is
Mhm.
naturally is going to come out regardless of this environment that they're in, right? So I thought that she did a good job of being kind of both of that.
Right. There's quite a few other characters and actors that we could talk about, but here's the thing: they didn't influence the show enough for us to to take time and talk about them. But let me ask you this: if you were to sell Hannah to one of your friends,
Yeah.
what would be your pitch?
What would be my pitch? I would say Hanna is a show about. I feel like it's different, right? Depending on who I'm talking to. But I guess generally, I'd say Hannah is a show about a girl who was raised to be an assassin by a government entity, and now she has to figure out how to shut that entity down, because there are a lot of other girls who are being raised the same way. That's how I would pitch it, because that interests me. It's like girl against the world.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I I love that. And here is my question: why do you think the entire project of Ultra centered in girl assassins, as opposed to, a mix of boys and girls, and like
I
there
did
is no
voice.
other, there is no other camp where there's only boys. There's only one Ultra, and Ultra is only, raising girls. Why do you think girls?
I think because their goal was to have them be a little. Well, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons. But I think in a misogynistic society, they probably thought that girls were a little bit easier manipulated. Also, girls are easier to blend in, like take Sandy's role, for example. She just became the college student and was,
Yep.
college Karen, like, living her life. And it was easy for her to do that. Um, and to be able to have these multiple personalities almost. And I think that I think in general, women are good at, multitasking because there's usually a lot of things happening in our
Yeah,
brain.
that's true.
Right. So I think that knowing that, they've probably felt like, oh, they can handle this. They can balance being an assassin and being a college student at one time.
Yeah, like while I was watching the show, I kept thinking about this. When they put these women in the world,
Hmm.
and they're gonna go about their lives so nonchalantly,
Right.
I feel sorry for whoever ends up, you
Marrying
know,
them.
marrying her
Yeah.
and taking her to mama and daddy and
Oh,
stuff without knowing, yo, this is an actual weapon you're bringing
correct.
into your family, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but overall, I love the premise of the show,
I do too.
and I hope it doesn't become tiring. I hope they keep it fresh and real for the
Yeah,
next seasons to come. Right?
me too. It was really good. I
What
really enjoyed it.
what do you hope to see in the seasons to come?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like I because I guess I expect for them to go to figure out how to shut down this project. Right? That is what I expect to see. I think it would be weird if they moved to America and, just decided to do something else, like, be
Right.
in the White House or something. That would be weird. I think that yeah, I want to see them kind of go all the way to the top and figure out who is really behind
Right.
this.
Right.
'Cause I don't think that we know that yet.
Yeah. The Pioneers Club sounds like just a artificial, superficial type
Right.
of thing that,
Hmm.
almost like a conspiracy theory more
Yeah.
than anything, as opposed to something that is real, isn't it?
Right.
Mm,
Right.
very well then. So I must say, as I expected and as I anticipated, of course, this has been an absolutely fantastic and enjoyable conversation.
Thank you for having me.
I actually would like to formally ask you to come on into the show a bit more often.
Please
So,
let me know. I would like, I love good TV. Like, especially now that we're in quarantine, like
yeah,
trying to catch up on everything. So, yeah, I would, of course, just let me know, and I would love to because I love these conversations.
whenever you see something that you like, that you think is worth talking about, and we haven't uh, quite gotten there, you
Yeah.
can always throw it into my inbox as a suggestion, and I will put up the challenge for you to come and show your face to kicking and streaming audience.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Thank you for having me and for the open
Fantastic.
invite.
So let me uh, give you this moment to tell our folks, our listeners, where to find you, how to follow you, and what is what is it that your podcast, your YouTube channel, everything that you do, go ahead and tell our audience about it and how they can find you online.
Yes. So my primary, I would, experience here is I am a business coach and I help people start businesses. So usually there are people who are very successful already in whatever career they have, and they're just looking to brand themselves outside of their organization. And I help them understand how to do that. And you can find me anywhere. I'm Tracy Timberlake on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. My podcast is called Social Side Notes, and it's usually just extra things. I post a lot on Instagram, but when there's something extra that Instagram won't allow me to say because it's limiting my characters, then I will
Right.
hop into my podcast and talk about it there. So, but if you look me up, Tracy Timberlake, you can find me.
Tracy Timberlake has been my host today, my guest co-host today, and it is I. You have no idea how fantastic it has been for me to know that I could just ask once and you were all in, and
Oh,
it
thank
took me it took me a while to decide
you.
asking you, but I'm so glad I asked you
I am
because
too.
you made it so easy. You made it so easy. It was I
Yay!
was like, wow. It's almost like sort of like the same thing that happened to me when I asked Jocelyn to be my co-host
I love
to
that.
to start a podcast with me. It was like I wasn't expecting her to say no, because I had heard so many people have told me, no, man, I'm not good at that, right? And so when Josephine said yes, I was like stunned, you know.
I love it. Well, again, thank you. This has been such a pleasure for me on this Saturday that we're recording this.
Absolutely fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, here you have it. Hannah season 2 is on Amazon Prime. You can also watch, of course, season 1, which will get you acquainted with the whole story. It may sound like we threw a lot of spoilers in this episode, but no, trust me, you need to watch this
Mhm.
because you will never understand what we're talking about.
True.
So there's no spoiler here
Nope.
unless you watch what we've talked about in it.
Right.
So very well then. So we want to thank you for listening today, and thank you to Dr. Tracy Timberlake for being here with us. We will see you next time for another episode of Kicking and Streaming. Uh, have a fantastic week, everyone. All
All
right. Da,
right.
da,
Wonderful.
da. Yes, Dr. Tutor is in
Thank
the
you so
house.
much
Thank
for
you
that. That
so
was
very
super
for
fun.
doing this.
Let me know when it's up so I can share it as well.
Tuesday it will be. So I will send you, like, tag you, and yeah, this has been dope. So again,
Yeah,
thank
very.
you.
You're so
I
welcome.
hope you enjoy
Have a
you
good
rest
day.
of your Saturday.
You too.
All right,
Take care. Bye bye.
take care. Ciao. Bye.